Hey people of VC, it's Andy Cloudy Mulder, and in this video I'm going to show you what I picked up on my annual birthday dig. Check it out. So, February the 3rd is my birthday. Yay, happy birthday to me. It's become tradition, certainly over the last 3 years at least, that I take the day off work for my birthday and I go out digging, visit as many record shops as my budget will allow, and that's usually at least three, and just have a thoroughly good day, really, just flicking through records and trying to find some really cool stuff. This year it kind of didn't go to plan. Well, it did, in that I got some absolutely fantastic pickups, but I found them all in the first shop, and I ended up blowing my budget by only by £12. But I tried to be fairly strict with this budget. But I kind of hit gold in the first shop I went to, and I ended up with this big stack of records, and it was probably double my budget. So I have to put some of the stuff back, and I'm going to have nightmares over the next few nights about some of the things I put back. I found there was some great original Quartz albums, including the deleted one in the brown paper bag that looked pretty cool. There was an Udo album which I found early on, and a Vinnie Vincent album which I've kind of been on the fence about for a while, but was going to pick it up today. And usually in the shop, because the way they set them out, it's kind of, I always tend to dig in bins left to right, and this shop, it's A to Z is right to left. So I always start in the Zs and move down, and I'd got to Q, and I knew it was going to be a good day, because I'd already had about 8 albums by then that was already beyond my budget, and I hadn't really got to some of the other stuff and some of the cool stuff that I really wanted to I ended up picking up. So yeah, I ended up just visiting the one shop and going home early. A little disappointed that I didn't get to go to the others, but I knew if I went to those other shops I would find stuff that I wanted and I just couldn't get, and I just couldn't put myself through it. It's too traumatic record shopping at times. But let me show you what I did pick up, and I think I had a great haul, so let me know what you think. So having said, I actually found a lot of really good stuff I liked that I put back. The first one I'm going to show is a blind buy, and the reason it made my list is because it's on the Mausoleum label. Now, Mausoleum is a Belgian record label that was probably most proficient during the mid 80s, when new wave of British heavy metal was kind of on the wane in certainly in the UK, and thrash metal was really starting to gather momentum. There were hundreds and hundreds of bands around Europe that are obviously still influenced by new wave of British heavy metal and wanted to make it, and labels like Mausoleum were lapping them up and recording their albums and putting them out. And a lot of these bands only ever released one or maybe two albums before kind of disappearing into obscurity, because the whole metal scene had changed. But having said that, it may well have been and also ran in the 80s, but now when you find these things and you hear them for the first time. Metal Mickey made a great point in one of his recent videos about how an album that he didn't like in the past, because kind of fashion dictated that style wasn't in anymore, suddenly sounds great now, because you forget about fashion when if you get to sort of my age, our age, a lot of you guys similar age to me here, you don't let anyone else dictate what you listen to now. You listen to what you like, and this is straight up honest to goodness heavy metal. The singer, I presume it's the guy in the middle, this is a German band. Like a lot of German bands, they're trying to emulate Accept to some degree, so he's kind of like a poor man's Udo. It suits the music well, but the world already had an Udo, and that's probably a reason why this band didn't really make it much further. But it's a killer album. As I say, great mainstream heavy metal, also around heavy metal in the 80s, but a real gem to find and listen to now. As I mentioned, it's on the Mausoleum label. I don't see too many around. In fact, I've got about 3 or 4 albums from Mausoleum, which is not even scratching the surface. And I think every copy on that label I found in this one shop in Edinburgh over the couple of years. That's the first one. Next up, absolutely stoked to find an original copy of Exodus Pleasures of the Flesh. I never see any Exodus originals in the wild. So this is from 1987. It's on the Music for Nations label. It's on the later 80s Music for Nations, 87, so with the Patrick Swayze waving the flag. As you know, I collect things on the Music for Nations label. There's some dodgy stuff on there which I'll tend to pick up if it's really cheap. This one wasn't so cheap, but it was still at a decent price. It would have cost me more, I think, to get on Discog, certainly with postage. It comes with the original inner sleeve with lyrics, which is in absolutely superb condition. I do like this little diagram here where it matches the cover, where they call out the names of the band, but also the names of the skulls as well. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, absolutely stoked to find a Exodus album. Another album I've never seen before in the wild, but a band that I really like from what little I've heard of them before. That's Hellion. This is also 1987, and this is their debut album, Screams in the Night. I showed an EP of theirs recently that I picked up that was from 1983, and they had a whole load of fallings out and legal wranglings, which actually stopped them producing an album for 4 years. So it was 4 years between their debut EP and their debut album. This is also on Music for Nations, again with the old Patrick Swayze label. And Hellion are female fronted with Anne Boleyn on vocals. As for their sound, there's a certain element of Dio to it, which isn't surprising because Wendy Dio was their manager, I believe. But it's kind of easy to say Warlock because it's female fronted metal, but they do actually sound like Warlock, although Anne Boleyn doesn't sound like Doro Pesch. The music sounds like Warlock, bit of sort of Judas Priesty. Again, the inner sleeve for this was perfect. Vinyl was perfect for that one, so I was stoked to find that one. That was an album that not that I would say would have been high on my want list. I hadn't really been thinking about it, to be honest with you, but as soon as I saw it, I thought I've got to have that one. Next up, a couple of albums by the same band. Again, don't see too much of the rods over here. So this is their debut album. Debut album of 5 stars, but don't just take our word for it. Read on. Perhaps the US metal debut of the year by Kerrang. This LP has to be heard to be believed, with a style reminiscent of the Ted Nugent band around the first classic epic album. The rods are already up there with the best of them. Jeff Barton. I think he was the guy that coined new wave of British heavy metal. Absolute killer album. More of an early US heavy metal sound than new wave of British metal. I'd say bit more sort of blues influence, but great stuff. Raw. It's the rods. I'd only had Let Them Eat Metal before this, so this was from 1981 on the Arista label. I say UK pressing. Also, this is one of my favourite covers. This is the Rod's second album, Wild Dogs. Love that. I love that. And there we go, put it back. I'd say not quite as heavy probably because it's better produced than the first album, but still a great album nonetheless. UK cover slightly different from the rest of Europe and US and Canada, I believe, with a yellow border on the side and the slightly different logo. But absolutely love the rods. So glad that I've been able to add some more of that to my collection, and that's also on the Arista label. And probably the two that I was most surprised to see in the record shop, because I've never seen these out in the wild before. They're not in perfect condition by any means. They both have a couple of scratches on, which have proved to be superficial. Really, there's no issue with the sound when I play these through. Both by the same band. First one being Slayer, Helloites. I was never a big Slayer fan in the 80s. I am warming to them now as I get older. So this is what, 1985. This is on Roadrunner Records, so it's a Dutch pressing for redistribution in Europe at the time. Yeah, great stuff. Also has the original inner sleeve. Feels a little bit crinkly. I don't know if it's got damp. It doesn't really feel like it's damp, maybe just condensation or something, but great thrash metal collage and lyrics. So this is on the Roadrunner label. And last but not least, and this is probably, South of Heaven would be, I would have said, is my favourite Slayer album that I've heard up till now. And they actually had a copy of South of Heaven in that record shop as well, which I left behind. It was £20, which is probably a good price for it in that condition, but I've already got a copy of that one, so I left it there for somebody else because I'm nice like that. And but this one, Seasons of the Abyss from 1990, is rapidly becoming one of my favourite Slayer albums. I find sort of Slayer from South of Heaven onwards a little bit more accessible to my taste. I know a lot of people will disagree and say they like the raw, almost like uniqueness of the sound at the time of the early ones, and I do like them, but they're not my go-to albums. They're poor metal ears like things a little bit more cleaner of vocals and what have you. But Seasons of the Abyss is a awesome album, and I've never seen this on vinyl before out in the wild. And this would have cost me a lot more to have bought on Discogs. Again, with an absolutely perfect mint inner sleeve. And this is on Deaf American label. And this was 1990, as I said as well. So yeah, absolutely stoked to get those records. A little bit more than I want to spend, but you know, I just couldn't leave the shop without any of these. Had some other things for my birthday. In fact, all the records I get for my birthday, usually at Christmas or what have you, I kind of buy myself as a treat, because family and friends wouldn't really know what to get or where to start, certainly with my musical taste. But another kind of treat I got for myself, and this is something that I wouldn't have got. I wouldn't have got it if it was full price. It was I just happened to be on Amazon, right place, right time, saw it for half price. It's a box set, and it's the Nuclear Blast, 30 years of Nuclear Blast on vinyl. Quite a chunky box. It's actually a 7 LP set, and each LP, there's so many bands on here I don't know, and I thought this was a good opportunity to familiarize myself with some newer bands, or even newer older bands for my ears. LP1, I believe, is more sort of death metal. LP2 is thrash, bands like Slayer, Testament, Anthrax, Overkill, Exodus, Machine Head. 3 is more sort of traditional metal, except Halloween, also there's Sabaton, Black Star Riders. LP4, more symphonic metal. Now that's not really my thing, but I'm gonna give it a go. 5 they call sort of diabolic sound, so I don't know if that's more sort of black death metal. I'm not really sure. LP6, what's that one? Don't know too many of those. LP7 is LP6 has got bands like Opeth, Witchcraft, Graveyard, Scorpion Child. I've not heard all these yet, so I can't really give a great opinion of what they sound like. And LP7 is newer bands. Again, I've not really heard of any of those. I wouldn't have bought it for full retail price, that's for sure, but for pretty much half price, it seemed worth a punt, especially as the next day it was back up to pretty much full price again. I'm not going to take it all out. All the LPs are the same, apart from they have a different number at the bottom. They're all gatefold. They all contain a picture of the band with the name of the song from that band, and they are all on this sort of mushy pea green vinyl. Nice touches, they all come in polyline sleeves as well. I've listened to the first couple of LPs, really enjoyed it, especially so they're especially, like I say, the first one's more sort of death metal, and that's really not my thing, and I did not realize that I would actually find bands like Carcass and Cradle of Filth, quite listenable. Who'd have thought it? I'm not sure I can necessarily listen to a whole album of that, but the mix of songs on these albums made it a great compilation, and I certainly have no problem listening to those a few times, and who knows, I may end up buying a CD or two of those bands to familiarise myself further. Couple of other things I got. Got the Made in England '88 DVD. Not opened that yet, so looking forward to giving that a listen. And Bruce Dickinson's autobiography, What Does This Button Do? There we go, didn't do well. So yeah, let me know what you think, certainly about the Record Shack haul. I was absolutely stoked to get certainly the Slayer and the rods. If you told me going into the shop I would have come out with those, I'd have bit your hand off. Thanks for watching. Been a bit slow on the video output recently. I'm kind of swamped with ideas and things that I want to do, but just not getting the time and motivation to put my mug in front of the camera and talk to you guys. So I'm going to try and crank out a few videos this week just to get my head back into the habit of doing this, and yeah, so enjoying you guys' videos, and I will see you all again soon. Cheers.